Happy New Year from us all at Sight for White and White Sense. I'd like to take a moment to wish all of our listeners, members, volunteers, supporters and friends a very happy and hopeful new year. Although we don't open until the 5th of January, I thought it'd be nice to have a reflective look back at one of our first entries on YouTube, as it gives us the opportunity to not only welcome in the new year, but also reflect on how far we've come together. Talking news has always been about more than information alone. It's also been about connection, independence and belonging. Reaching these milestones is only possible because of the dedication of our volunteers, the support of our members, and the trust placed in us by the wider Isle of Wight community. Every recording, every edit, every story read aloud is part of a collective effort that spans years of care, consistency and compassion. As we move into the new year, we do so with the gratitude for the past and optimism for what lies ahead. We look forward to continuing to share local stories, celebrate achievements, and keep you connected to the island we all call home. Thank you for listening, thank you for being part of our journey, and from all of us at Sight for White, we wish you a peaceful, positive, and very happy new year.
Good morning, this is Chris.
And I'm Howard, reading the Society News to start us off for Friday 19th of August. On Tuesday, the Dolphins will be swimming. That's evening 23rd of August at the Waterside Pool in Ryde. The swimming group has sole use of the pool during the session, and there are lifeguards in attendance. If you're interested in joining the group, please contact the Society to advise us of your swimming ability and for us to advise the Waterside Pool. On Friday the 26th of August, the Striders will be going out for their monthly stride. The stride will be going to Hampstead Circular. Other news: Isle of Wight Society for the Blind clients have been offered the opportunity of playing outdoor bowls, practising inside during the winter with a view to playing outside next spring or summer. The initial indoor sessions will be held in the Ryde area near Tesco. Please contact Millbrook House to express your interest, and we can then follow this up further. There's no indoor bowling on 30th of August, but the group are meeting at LA Bowl at 1 o'clock on that day, and then going to lunch at the Castle on Ryde Seafront. Please come along, no pre-booking is required. Indoor bowling will resume on 27th of September at 2 p.m, and thereafter 4 weekly. The details of this month's fellowship meetings are as follows. The group will be held at Bethany Evangelical Church, Union Street, Newport, on Saturday 27th August at 3 p.m. The speaker this month is Mr. Alistair Wells. There are some activities: hymns, quiz, story reading, short Christian message, followed by tea. A collection is taken from which donations are made to the Torch Trust for the Blind. Hymn books and scripture in large print and braille are available. Further details from Mrs. Jackie Moore, telephone 520-797. This week's In Touch in this week's episode, the new generation of watch. Ian McRae demonstrates a watch which uses haptic technology and enables you to tell the time by a series of vibrations. Tom Walker goes to Salford to meet Paralympic swimmer Hannah Russell as she makes her final preparations for Rio. She'll be competing in the 50 and 100 metres freestyle and the 100 metres backstroke. She made her Paralympic debut at age 16 at London 2012, walking away with 3 medals. What can she achieve this time round?
And some sad news. Sheila Cattell died yesterday. Sheila used to do the teas for the Owls group before Beryl took over. Sheila also took part in the art club. She had been ill for about a year.
This is Chris Kane, Senior Administrator for the Isle of Wight Society for the Blind. News from Southern Vectis. On Tuesday the 16th of August, our CEO, Estelle Thomas, went with David Rogers of the Bus Users Group and Don Havers to meet with Southern Vectis to discuss the new bus timetable and other developments. The discussions went very well, and as a result, on Wednesday the 21st of September at 10:30 a.m, Southern Vectis will be coming to Millbrook House, the Society's headquarters, to give any visually impaired people a large print copy of the timetable for the route they would normally use. Then, from around 11:30 a.m. onwards, they will be demonstrating their website and explaining how to use it to get audio information. This has taken a long time to organise, so we would really like to see as many people as possible here to give feedback to Southern Vectis. This will form part of our normal coffee morning for that day. Another exciting piece of news that came out of the meeting is that within the next 2 weeks, audio and visual announcements are to be trialled on some buses on routes 1 and 9. It will be a single decker on route 1 and a double on route 9, with this equipment installed. This has been requested for many years. The new system being trialled will be using GPS, which is available all over the island, unlike the previously available system, which was very intermittent. Southern Vectis will not be receiving grants from anywhere to put this expensive equipment into their buses. They want to get it right for everyone on the island, so your feedback is essential before other routes have this facility installed. Let us know what is good about it and what you feel could be improved. For example, are the audio announcements too loud or too quiet? Are the visual displays large enough? Is the timing right? If you use one of these routes in the next few weeks and the system is operational, call Tim or Chris on 522 205 and give them your feedback. Thank you.
And now the headlines for this week's County Press. Garden Village proposal for Camp Hill. The former Camp Hill prison could be demolished to make way for a garden village, the County Press can reveal. The government is encouraging local authorities across the country to create garden villages to get Britain building. It has described such projects as offering quality design with cutting-edge technology, local employment opportunities, and accessible green space and high-quality public realm facilities. The news talks have taken place comes just 2 weeks after figures obtained by the County Press showed taxpayers had been left to foot a £575,000 bill to secure and maintain the prison since it closed in March 2013. That led former Isle of Wight Council leader, Councillor Ian Stevens, to call on the Ministry of Justice, the MOJ, to hand over the site, valued at around £2.5 million, to the island to help regeneration. It has now emerged early discussions have taken place to see if a handover can be secured. Isle of Wight Council leader, Councillor Jonathan Bacon, said, "We have had discussions with the Homes and Communities Agency, which may acquire Camp Hill from the MOJ to bring forward this site, and a funding bid has been made to explore its potential as a garden village." The site lends itself to a mixture of employment and residential use. We need to be careful to make sure these uses are balanced. He said the council was also looking at securing funding under the One Public Estate programme, a government collaboration with the local government association that could explore how other government-owned sites could be better used to benefit the island. Many government assets are not prime sites and will often need significant public funding to bring them forward. Camp Hill is probably in this category. Consequently, one needs to be clear about cost implications before taking any such site on, but this doesn't mean we don't explore such possibilities, he said.
A pair of twins achieved identical A-level grades to go on to study the same subject at university. Christ the King College students Beth and Ruby Pelling, 18, of Nelson Street Ryde, will both go on to study geography, albeit at different universities, after they each gained an A star, A and a B. Beth will study at Birmingham University after she gained an A star in history and an A in geography, while Ruby will head for Leeds University after she gained her A star in geography and an A in history, with both achieving B in biology. Both girls had been nervous the night before they got their results and were relieved after they opened the dreaded brown envelope. Earlier figures appear to show the island has slipped further against the national top-end AAB or better pass rates, with 5% of Isle of Wight students achieving the standard, 1% down on 2015 against 12% nationally.
Well done, Miss. In an unusual turn of events, it was the students who were congratulating their teacher on A-level results day yesterday. Vix Loudian, the Green Party's National Education spokesperson, gained an A star in geography and an A in government and politics. Vix has been teaching geography at the Isle of Wight College for the last 2 years, despite not having a qualification in it. Her degree from York University was in history, the other subject she has been teaching, and will teach at the Island Innovation Campus now the Isle of Wight College has stopped offering A-levels. She said, "I have 1 year to go on a geology degree at the Open University, and geography is an umbrella subject for so many different topics, history, economics, etc. So I know I wasn't qualified in geography, but I have learnt what was needed through my other qualifications." The teaching situation arose as a result of the college stopping offering A-levels, but still wanting to cater for the students in their final years. Although Vix does not believe it should be compulsory for students to take A-levels at the same time as their students because of the demands of teaching, she does believe it has allowed her to empathise with the students. It's been a huge learning curve because you are putting yourself through what the students are going through and how much they have to write. Asked how she felt about her grades, Vix said she was more concerned with how her students did, with one student getting an A star, 2 getting A's and another getting a C.
Resurfacing a 2.5-mile section of the Military Road is to be carried out at night. Work on the section between Afton Road and Compton Bay Car Park next month will take place between 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. Island Road says to further reduce disruption, the work will be done in 2 phases, from Compton Bay Car Park to Compton Farm and from Compton Farm to Afton Road. The road will be one of the longest single stretches resurfaced so far under the Highways PFI. It's scheduled to begin in the middle of next month and last 13 nights in total. Work will not be carried out over weekends.
Tree attack by vandals. A tree planted to replace the historic Cowes umbrella tree on Prince's Green has been vandalised. The weeping beech tree was planted in 2014 after the previous umbrella tree, a weeping ash, became diseased. Now councillors have to replace the replacement after vandals damaged it at some point during Cowes Week fireworks last Friday. Isle of Wight Council Executive Member for the Environment, Councillor Paul Fuller, said, "It is really sad mindless vandals have caused so much damage to a tree which was so welcomed by the community following the removal of the historic umbrella tree. We intend to plant a replacement this winter during the planting season and hope it will flourish and mature into a tree which can be enjoyed as much as the umbrella tree was." Cowes Mayor David Jones said, "Cowes Town Council is upset to hear of the dreadful damage caused to the new weeping beech, and following this incident we welcome and look forward to the opportunity to work in partnership with the Isle of Wight Council to find a long-term solution to replace this iconic tree."
An anti-fracking petition has been launched by the Isle of Wight Lib Dems. They've called on the Isle of Wight Council to reject fracking or oil drilling on the island, fearing that companies may seek to exploit the island's budget crisis by pushing applications through. Isle of Wight Lib Dem Vice Chairman Nick Belfit said, "I'm not anti-frackist at heart. I can see occasions where it could be used, but it's going to be an ecological and infrastructural disaster on the Isle of Wight. We don't have the capacity for a drilling plant. We're worried the council won't look at the big picture. The number of lorries and tankers needed to move oil or gas would put too much pressure on the road network," he added. The party will campaign on no to fracking, yes to better alternatives in next year's local elections. To sign the petition, visit www.iowlibdems.org.uk/en/petition no-fracking-on-the-island.
Family anguish after beloved pet shot. A beloved cat is fighting for its life after it was shot with an air rifle. 2-year-old Tiffany was found with serious injuries near her home in White Pit Lane, Newport last Monday. Owner Ben Sharland, his wife Heather and their 7-year-old daughter Isabel Willis were devastated to find Tiffany had been paralysed after the pellet hit her left side and travelled through to her right side, clipping her spinal cord. Vets are keeping a close eye on Tiffany, but they are unsure of her future as she is unable to move or go to the toilet. Mr. Sharland, 28, said Tiffany was a present for Isabel and the two had become a very close bond. She followed Isabel around the house everywhere. Now Isabel's devastated. It's a sickening attack on a defenceless animal, he said. It's a real concern. Someone is out there firing an air rifle, especially when we have children and other pets. If someone is prepared to shoot at animals, then it might not be long before they start shooting at people. If a pellet can do that much damage to a cat, then it could seriously injure a child. The incident has been reported to the police. A police spokesman said it is believed the cat was injured sometime between 10 p.m. on August the 8th and 2:15 p.m. on August the 9th. The cat was found injured and an X-ray at the vets confirmed there was a pellet lodged inside, causing substantial injuries. If anyone has any information about this incident, call PC Olivia Peachy on 101, quoting 44160 298 462.
Contractors have started work creating the access road to the new Asda superstore, which is set to open by the end of next year. A new roundabout in St George's Way near Newport Football Club and a new link road crossing Pan Lane to the Pan Meadows development will be built in stages. The majority of work during the first phase will be undertaken off the highway, and the Isle of Wight Council said it didn't expect any significant disruption during the summer. The new roundabout, plus improvements to the existing St George's Way roundabout at the Morrisons and Marks and Spencer exit, will follow in phase 2.
Royal Marine cufflinks taken. Royal Marine cufflinks, a watch and a set of car keys were among items stolen from a property in Ryde. A ground floor flat in Spencer Road was entered at around 4 a.m. last Friday. Navy blue Royal Marine cufflinks with red and yellow stripes were stolen, which were of great sentimental value to the owner. The offender also took a vintage Omega's ladies' watch, which had a gold strap and square face, with keys to the flat, a set of car keys, an HTC smartphone and an empty wallet. A handbag and purse were also taken, but were later found in a nearby garden. A small amount of cash had been removed from the purse. Anyone with any information relating to the burglary can call police on 101.
Islanders are being urged to support Ryde Arena, which has now reopened to the public. As previously reported, the rink's cooling pump, inherited from its days as Planet Ice, failed. A temporary pump is in use while a replacement is found, but it means the rink is open only between noon and 3 p.m. on weekdays and from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. on weekends. However, many skaters are staying away, mainly because of the hot beach weather. The Whitelink Raiders ice hockey team will be back on the ice within the next 2 weeks, according to Ashley Chapman, Ryde Arena's marketing manager. He said, "We've been struggling because of different problems, both with the building and with the ice pad, and are in desperate need of some form of income. We've only just reopened and are not normally that busy this time of year, but we're trying to promote getting the island public back into ice skating again at Ryde Arena. We hope to get a new pump within the month, and although renovations are continuing, they're coming along slowly. The roof no longer leaks, and we hope to get back to normal by the end of the year. The rink has been closed since last November, when part of the roof was blown off by strong winds.
Band song extols virtues of the Isle of Wight. An island band has written a song poking fun at Ofsted chair David Hoare, following his Wight ghetto comments. East Wight-based The Alberts penned the song Crime-Filled Ghetto and will be performing it on Ryde Seafront on Sunday afternoon while filming the music video. The band will be busking on the esplanade near the pier from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. The Alberts formed last year and regularly perform in venues across the island. Self-described as an acoustic-style foot-tapping band, the Alberts comprise Bob Baptista of Sandown on guitar and vocals, Alan Patterson, also of Sandown, on fiddle, banjo and mandolin, and Steve Love of Ryde on double bass. Steve, who came up with the lyrics, said, "I was in Yorkshire visiting my elderly mum and dad when my mum said, 'Isn't it terrible, all that crime and drugs on the Isle of Wight?' I thought, my gosh, I want to get my own back. I was up a ladder doing some chores, and by the time I came down, I more or less had all the words in my head for a song. I got the band together and locked them in a shed until we had finished the tune. The song tells everyone how great the island is and is just a little bit rude about that nice Mr. Hoare."
And in similar vein, a teacher who was angered when an Ofsted boss branded the island a poor white ghetto has created T-shirts to help raise money for children living in real ghettos. Marcus James, who was born on the island and taught at Lake Middle School for 7 years, has produced a range of tops to draw attention to Ofsted Chairman David Hoare's comments made at a recent teaching conference. Mr. James, 38, who now teaches at the International School of Geneva, said profits from the T-shirts would go to the school bus project as well as other good causes. The bus has been converted into a classroom and is taken into poor communities and refugee camps to help educate children. Mr. James said the comments were ridiculous and don't sum up the Isle of Wight at all, so the T-shirts will raise a bit of money and mock his ideas. They will challenge those narrow-minded and harmful comments. Mr. James visits refugee camps around the world and educates children in mainstream schools about the difficulties refugee families face. He said the money raised will help children living in real ghettos. The T-shirts have been made using T-Mill, an online resource created by Eco Clothing from Rapa Nui, which allows people to design and print their own clothing. They can be bought for £19 from www.ghettoisland.tmill.co.uk.
Lynbottom Tip is back in business. Lynbottom Recycling Centre near Newport reopened on Monday and the temporary recycling centre at Ryde closed. Groundworks have been carried out over the past 2 weeks as part of the facelift to be completed next summer. The tip will soon provide a new pay-as-you-throw recycling area for businesses. Lynbottom will be open as usual between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. each day of the summer, while Afton Marsh returns to its normal opening hours of 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturdays, Sundays and Mondays. AMY Director Paul Southall said, "This has been a large project which continues to run to the timetable. The temporary closure was necessary to complete groundworks, but I'm sure users will soon see they are getting an enhanced facility. Further works at Lynbottom will continue with no disruption to users."
Claiming nearly £24,000 of housing and council tax benefit while living rent-free in a £300,000 house owned by his in-laws landed a Newport man in court. Stuart Newman and his now estranged wife Matchie lived in a house in Wootton High Street between 2011 and 2014 with their 3 children, claiming they paid rent of £750 a month. Newman, 57, now of Langton Walk, Newport, admitted 4 fraud offences of making a false representation at Portsmouth Crown Court last week. At an earlier hearing, Mrs. Newman accepted she had made false representations but denied dishonestly doing so. The court heard the family had moved into the Wootton home in 2011 after previously living at another rented house. A change of address form was filed with the Isle of Wight Council, together with a claim for housing benefit. Letters purporting to be from Newman's in-laws were produced on a number of occasions, backing their claims for housing benefit, but it was eventually revealed in 2014 £24,000 in rent had not been paid. When Newman was interviewed by council officers, he said he'd been doing work at the house in lieu of payments. The court heard Newman was paying back the benefit money he owed at the rate of £150 a month. For Newman, Wendy Cook said her client felt remorseful and thought he'd set a bad example for his children. Sentencing Newman to a 10-month jail term, suspended for a year, Judge Sarah Monroe said when he had been interviewed by the council, he accepted that he had used the cash for everyday items. A compensation order of £23,858.59 was made, with £1,500 costs.
Match to honour Panos. A very special football match will be held at St Helens this weekend in memory of local man Panos Karashi. Panos died suddenly following a cardiac arrest in May, leaving his wife, Steph Drummy, who was 7 months pregnant with their first child. He was a keen footballer, playing for St Helens and with his friends, who have organised a charity match in his honour. St Helens Blue Star FC will take on FK Dynamo Panos at St Helens Sports Club on Sunday, where they will compete for the Panos Memorial Trophy, with proceeds going to Steph and baby Ria and to the British Heart Foundation. Panos, who had an undiagnosed heart condition, was just 28 when he died. His friend and neighbour, Kieran Chapman, one of the organisers, said, "We thought a memorial match would be fitting because Panos loved his football and we always had a lot of fun. He would run around like a loon and we were always taking the mickey out of each other. Everyone loved Panos. He didn't take life too seriously and always had a smile on his face. He would do anything for anyone, so it was only right we did something for Steph." Steph, 30, said, "It just shows how well liked he was for them to think of me and Ria. I'd like to say a big thank you to all of them." Players will be wearing Panos Memorial Trophy t-shirts donated by island clothing firm Rapa Nui, which are available to buy in return for a donation. Kick-off will be at 1:30 p.m. and the match will be followed by a buffet and music at the Vine Inn. A prize draw will feature donations from Rapa Nui, Liz Earle and other local companies.
The Lucy Blackman Trust, which provides support for the families of people who have disappeared or died abroad, has launched a scheme to attract supporters. The Isle of Wight-based trust was founded following the brutal killing of island woman Lucy Blackman in Japan and helps dozens of families in crisis every month. This can be anything from a recently missing person to a homicide or death overseas. As well as these new inquiries, we're also supporting hundreds of families through cases which can last for many years, said Chief Executive Matt Searle. We're a very small organisation with just a handful of dedicated staff and volunteers, and the workload can sometimes be huge. The appeals you see here online are just the tip of the iceberg of the work we carry out. It's a sad inevitability that supporting these families costs money. We receive a small amount of government funding, but sadly this doesn't cover all of the costs involved, he said. In a bid to raise funds to support its work, the charity has established LBT First 500. New supporters who sign up as part of the scheme will be in the running for prizes, including festival tickets.
We'd rather miss out. Some vulnerable cancer patients refuse treatment to avoid the genuinely gruelling journey to the mainland, a health watchdog has revealed. The latest Cancer Services report, published by Healthwatch Isle of Wight this week, following a patient survey, said patients often faced a 5 or 6 hour round trip to receive treatment, with some even reporting an 8-hour journey. Health officials said cancer patients were likely to feel vulnerable and be prone to fatigue. The effect of the travel was, therefore, magnified to become a genuinely gruelling experience. In response to the travel concerns, a Cross-Solent Cancer Board has been established, which will be attended by key staff from the Cancer Unit at the Isle of Wight NHS Trust, the Cancer Centres at University Hospital Southampton Foundation NHS Trust and Portsmouth Hospital NHS Trust, and both commissioning organisations. Concerns were also raised over the cost of travel, the need for early ferries when given early appointments, and the lack of radiotherapy available on the island. Patients deemed unfit to travel by their consultant can stay at the Jury's Inn, Southampton, free of charge, with the usual rate costing around £60 a night. Anne Snow, lead cancer nurse for the Isle of Wight NHS Trust, said, "As a trust, we continue to strive towards providing a seamless, holistic, high-quality service for cancer patients. This includes those patients who travel to the centres for treatment in Portsmouth Hospital Trust and University Health Service of Southampton. All three trusts are committed to improving the patient experience and will continue with close communication to ensure continuity of patient care."
And on a similar note, a travel advice line is to be launched to smooth the path of people to medical appointments. The People Matter Isle of Wight Transport Advice Line, which goes live on Monday, is designed to help people research the best travel options. We will search the range of public, private and voluntary transport providers to get people to their appointments, whether on the island or at one of the mainland hospitals, said a spokesman. Advice is available on the Isle of Wight NHS Trust Healthcare Travel Cost Scheme for those who are eligible. Information is also available on the ferry company's discounted travel for people needing to visit mainland hospitals. People can ring the advice line between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m, Mondays to Fridays on 821 000 extension 2838.
Rudeness and staffing worries. Rude healthcare professionals and short-staffed departments were among worries of cancer patients on the Isle of Wight. The Healthwatch Isle of Wight report said clinical updates were not always available, and patients sometimes found themselves passing on important information when visiting another hospital for treatment. Patients also said case coordination tended to falter if a key individual was away. Moving hospital was not always smooth. While a large number of patients praised the kind and caring nature of staff, some felt they were met by rude staff who rushed the appointment. Patients were also worried about the number of staff and said departments seemed stretched at times. Healthwatch Isle of Wight said barriers to communication between departments, GP practices and community nursing should be rectified. There should also be more realistic scheduling for appointments.
Charity shop workers have been cheered by the response to a heartless theft after camera equipment worth £250 was stolen from the Cancer Research UK shop in Union Street, Ryde. An anonymous donor stepped forward. She brought in 2 brand new Canon telephoto lenses, still in their boxes, worth between £100 and £150 each, said shop manager Sam Grieve. "We were heartbroken after the theft, but as soon as people heard about what had happened through the county press, we've been overwhelmed with kindness. More people have come in with gifts of items for sale, including those from this very generous lady, and there have been more customers supporting the charity. There have also been several cash donations from people. It illustrates the closeness of the island community.
What happened when two suitors declared their love in a very public way? When the smoke cleared. A holidaymaker became ringmaster when he proposed to his girlfriend at the J. Miller Circus in Wootton. Alec Marshall, 28, popped the question to Kirsty McTeer during its popular Bubble show on Saturday. Alec, of Consett, County Durham, had arranged with the circus's proprietor, John Miller, for him and Kirsty, 30, to be volunteers in the ring during the show. As the smoke from a burst bubble cleared, Alec emerged with an engagement ring to surprise Kirsty, who said yes to his proposal, to the delight of around 600 spectators, which included their 4 children. Alec said, "My stomach was doing somersaults all day. Kirsty didn't have a clue until the smoke cleared. The whole thing was fantastic and it really made our holiday. We absolutely love the island and we plan to come back for a holiday next year."
And another public proposal in more ways than one. An island pub landlord, well known for making a statement with his controversial signs, made a more romantic one when he proposed to an old flame in front of thousands at Jack Up the 80s. Mick Quinn, landlord of the Fleming Arms Binstead, got down on one knee to pop the question to his former first wife, Angie Jeevons, in front of 5,000 people at the event on Sunday. The 48-year-old mother of 4 of Kenston Court Binstead spared Mick's blushes by saying yes, but not before the festival's master of ceremonies had put it to the vote with the crowd. The couple, who first met as students at Ryde High School, tied the knot 30 years ago, but divorced after almost 5 years of marriage. After going their separate ways for almost 25 years, they rekindled their love after Angie used Mick's taxi service about a year ago. Mick, 49, who caused a stir last year with his controversial pub signs, explained, "We were young when we first got married, and things didn't work out. But 25 years later, we're back together. Getting married was something we'd talked about, so at Jack Up the 80s, after the 4th Budweiser, I decided to go for it. I went to the donut stand and got a mini donut to use as a makeshift engagement ring. I had a word with Alex Dyke about the possibility of being able to propose to Angie on stage, and he was absolutely fine about it. I was definitely relieved she said yes."
Modern version of Bayeux tapestry goes on display. The Kids' Tapestry, a reinterpretation of the Bayeux tapestry, has been unveiled at Osborne House this week. Children across the country voted for the most historic event since the Battle of Hastings to be included in the 8-metre tapestry designed by children's illustrator Liz Pichon. The tapestry's visit to Osborne is part of a nationwide tour of English heritage sites. Queen Victoria's coronation, the end of the Second World War, and the plague arriving in England are among the panels on display. Children have also been invited to enter a competition to design the 10th panel, which will show the creation of the World Wide Web. Liz Pichon said, "The Kids' Tapestry is the perfect way of engaging kids with history. Not only did they get to choose the moments, but they will be able to complete the story." The year 1066 is one of the most important dates in English history, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what designs kids come up with for the final panel. The tapestry will be on display until Sunday.
Seaview is to have post office services restored if villagers are in favour of the plan. The post office confirmed Seaview Pharmacy will take on the sub-post office, restoring its service lost to the village in March. Post office services will be offered from a till integrated into the retail counter. Service will be available throughout the pharmacy's opening hours, Monday to Friday 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 2:15 to 5:30 p.m, Saturday 9 a.m. to 12:45 p.m. Post Office Regional Network Manager Sue Whittle said, "Just like the vast majority of branches, CV will be run alongside the operator's retail businesses, which helps the sustainability of the branch and its long-term future. Customers and interested parties have been invited to comment on the plan before September 27th, after which a final decision will be made. Submissions can be made by free post your comments to Post Office Limited via email to comments@postoffice.co.uk. Customers can also respond with a questionnaire at postofficeviews.co.uk with the branch code 090935.
High-speed return for Well. Whitwell's ancient water source has become a lucky wishing well. When Red Funnel heard its new Red Jet 6 ferry had been chosen as the theme for this year's well dressing, it gave some cash for the church funds, adding to the donations from members of the public. There have been loads of visitors this year, including a group of Nordic walkers who were very impressed, said designer Anne Harris. We also had lots of people helping our small team, which has made it a community effort. The well dressing has taken place for many years. The thousands of blooms, protected by a gazebo from the fierce sun, should last another week. The Church Flower Festival takes place from September the 3rd to the 6th.
A bell ringer completed his first quarter peal, a ring of more than 40 minutes, aged just 10. Max Downer of Rookley, who rings with Carisbrooke and Newport bell ringers, has shown great talent for ringing, having started less than a year ago. His first quarter peal, which rang from St Thomas's Church, Newport, last Sunday, comprised 1,260 changes. Mary Blake, Tower Secretary for Carisbrooke and Newport bell ringers, said, "A quarter peal is a test of stamina as much as skill. It's very impressive for someone of his age to complete one. The last time someone as young as Max completed a quarter peal on the Isle of Wight was more than 10 years ago."
Young fossil hunters find. One lucky young fossil hunter stumbled upon a 125-million-year-old dinosaur bone while out searching on Yaverland Beach. 5-year-old Oliver Caccioli, on holiday with his parents Hannah and Julian from Hertfordshire, found the fossil on a trip with Isle of Wight fossil hunting adventure. The fossil Oliver found was a finger bone. Agnes, who runs the fossil hunting trip, said, "No one in our group expected someone would find anything as rare as this." Oliver's parents brought him to the Isle of Wight specifically for the fossil hunting because he is passionate about dinosaurs.
A Dubai University dean was found dead in a holiday park caravan, an inquest heard. The body of Christopher Robin Southgate, 52, was found on July 29th at Sandhills Holiday Park, Bembridge. Staff raised the alarm after finding a note on the caravan door which was tied closed from the inside with a piece of string, indicating Mr. Southgate was dead and asking no one entered except the police or paramedics. He was found in an armchair in the lounge area. It was estimated he had died 2 to 3 days previously. The cause of death has yet to be ascertained, pending further inquiries. A post-mortem was inconclusive. According to Mr. Southgate's LinkedIn page, he was the Dean of Zayed University, Dubai, although his last address, given at last week's inquest, was Brinskill, a village in Chorley, Lancashire. A Cambridge University graduate, Mr. Southgate was previously a Middle East academic director for the University of Central Lancashire. Coroner Caroline Summeray adjourned the inquest to a date to be fixed.
Rare dinosaur skull discovered. Dinosaur Isle in Sandown is due to unveil an exciting new display after a rare fossil discovery. The remains of the rare skull were discovered by Emily Tabassi Gill and family from East Sussex while on a Dinosaur Isle staff-led walk. The horse-like skull of the plant-eating dinosaur is an extremely rare find because of the fragility of dinosaur skulls, making them less likely to become fossils. The fossil was also found within the layers that rarely preserve dinosaur bones, making its discovery even more extraordinary. Dinosaur Isle Community Learning Assistant Alex Peaker was extremely grateful to Emily for her fossil donation, saying, "Because of Emily's generosity, we can make sure the museum is stacked full of real fossils." Emily had no hesitation in donating her discovery to Dinosaur Isle. She said, "It was so exciting to have discovered the fossil. I feel it is important experts such as Alex can use the fossil in their research, and it is kept safely by the museum for the future."
A man who admitted 3 breaches of his community order was told he was abusing the court and warned one more slip-up would result in him being jailed. Darren Stride, 39 of South Street, Ventnor, admitted 3 breaches when he appeared before Island magistrates. The court heard Stride was given a 12-month community order after being convicted of 2 theft offences last August. Part of the order involved him having to complete 150 hours of unpaid work. However, Stride completed 110 hours of the original 150. He had also failed to do an extra 25 hours unpaid work imposed after a separate breach of the original order. Representing Stride, Barry Arnott said his client's work as a removals man very often took him to the mainland, making it difficult for him to return to the Isle of Wight. Magistrates revoked the order and sentenced Stride to 6 weeks in jail, suspended for 12 months. He was also ordered to complete 90 hours of unpaid work with £50 costs.
Fun Day lives up to its name for 2,500. More than 2,500 people enjoyed a fun-filled afternoon at the Rotary Family Fun Day. The event was held at Northwood Showground on Sunday. Visitors enjoyed entertainment from Eastern Promise belly dancers, Lane Star School of Dance, Vectis Corps of Drums, Dave B., Short and Sweet, White Euchres and Ebb Phillips. The wide range of musicians, dancers and other entertainers gave their time for free. Newport Youth Football Club held a tournament which ran throughout the day. There was also a fun horse and dog show on part of the grounds. A small donation was asked to park cars, and all the money raised went to the island's young people's charity, Challenge and Adventure, and Island Rotary Clubs.
So that concludes our reading, first part of our reading for today. So it's goodbye from Howard.
And it's goodbye from Chris.
And now, a change of voices.
And it's hello from Madeline.
And it's hello from Peter.
And we're starting off with some letters. And this is Solent Deal, time to find out more. And this is from Councillor Jonathan Bacon, leader of the Isle of Wight Council, St Helens. There has been talk about the possibility of the Solent devolution deal for a long time, and a lot of people have a lot of questions about what it means, in general for the island and for residents. You may be asking, why does this matter to me? Right now, we don't know what will come forward in terms of specific projects or areas for investment, and we won't know this in detail until the deal is done and discussions can take place. In part, the powers that could be handed down would create and fix this detail. However, we do know we would have more control of funding coming into the Solent area, which could then be used to benefit the Isle of Wight. And we would have control of the decisions being made about our future, rather than having them decided in Westminster. The deal will bring new funding to the area, £30 million a year over 30 years, equivalent to £900 million of new funding over the next 30 years. Our share of this will help to bring about change, to regenerate, to create business opportunities, create new jobs and make the island's economy more sustainable into the future. The deal will be administered by a body known as the Solent Mayoral Combined Authority. One of the main functions of that authority would be to determine what share of money the individual partners would get to achieve these ends.
And the current proposal is the combined authority will be headed by a mayor, as this will give us the best legal solution to manage the powers of finance and decision making that we need. The mayor would be supported by a board on which the Isle of Wight would be represented as an equal partner. As such, the combined authority would not mean the end of local authorities. The Isle of Wight Council and our mainland partner authorities would maintain their sovereignty and continue to deliver the services they do now. The combined authority will, however, give us better opportunities to work together to make decisions for the best of the area as a whole.
The ambition of the Solent deal is to create more skilled and better paid jobs, bring investment into the area, reduce the region's welfare bill and reform public services. This would be done by focusing on the following important areas: business support and innovation, learning, skills and employment, housing and planning, transport and infrastructure. This is potentially a great opportunity to generate more funding for the island and to build better opportunities for our future. The Solent deal could help us unlock potential regeneration sites for development. With this clear, we could then attract more funding and developers, attract new businesses or encourage others to grow, and it will support our local economy through better jobs, needed skills, appropriate planning and housing decisions, and better infrastructure for our communities to thrive.
And now is the time to get involved and have your say. There is a public consultation happening across the three authority areas until September the 18th. You can have your say on behalf of the island at www.solentdeal.co.uk. And if you'd like to know more or ask any questions you have, then please come along to the public meeting on Wednesday, August the 31st from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. at the Medina Theatre in Newport.
And now we have Letter of the Week, and this is from Mary Coward in Chale. She says, "Thank you, Ventnor Lions, you have made it a very special day. I would be glad if I might bring to your readers' attention the wonderful work of the Lions Clubs on the island, and to give an example of an act of great kindness shown by a team from the Ventnor branch. In our village there is a man who for more than 15 years was a stalwart worker for Chale Show, the Crab Fair and other charitable events. Sadly, last year he suffered a severe stroke, and due to reduced mobility and very difficult access to his home, he has since then been housebound. Quite close to the weekend of the Chale Show, it became apparent his dearest wish was to get down to the show and once more feel part of an event which had been such an important part of his life. Unfortunately, most of his friends and colleagues are now at an age when carrying a man up and down steep steps is no longer a safe option. Feelers were put out, hands were thrown in the air, teeth were sucked and eyes rolled. The general response was that nothing could be done. But then we found the Ventnor Lions. My first contact was with Julia Long, whose immediate, wonderful response was, 'I'm sure we can help this man, leave it to me.' I did, and in a very short time a team of can-do people came together. Strong men were found for the carrying up and down the steps, and other caring people were found to be escorts. These were headed up by Jenny Bolter, who gave freely of her time to provide companionship and great care for the duration of the visit. The outing was a huge success and made a very happy day for this most deserving man. I only wish I knew the names of all concerned so they could be given due credit. So, people of the Isle of Wight, be assured there are many very good people out there willing to help their fellow man, and if you pass any fundraisers, rattling tins or buckets for the Lions, please dip into your pockets and make a contribution to support them in their work."
Mm-hmm. And here's a letter from Carol Dillon of Southampton. And she says, My family and myself travelled to the island last Wednesday and visited Blackgang Chine, making our way via Newport on the bus from Cowes. We had a fabulous day at the attraction, but when we left to make our way back to Cowes to get the ferry back to Southampton, we were shocked to find that the last bus had left at 6:06 p.m. I then had to call a friend who lives on the island to call a taxi to get us back to Cowes, and we were very grateful to Cowes Taxis for the service because we needed them to accommodate a child's pushchair. I think we were fortunate because Cowes Week was going on at this time. And I think that Southern Vectis should run its buses later in the summer holidays from the main attractions on the island, or the drivers should let their passengers know when the last bus goes when they disembark from the bus. So, after having such a great day on the island, it turned out to be rather expensive with the extra cost of the taxi. So I'm afraid Mrs. Dillon was not thrilled by our bus service.
And this is from a Miss E. Fallock of Newport. Happy memories of 1935 FA Cup game. I was very interested to read the obituary for Ray Hamilton. He was 6 months older than me, and I first knew him as a child when we attended Sunday school at the Methodist Church in Key Street, Newport. However, my main reason for writing is I was surprised to see the referee to Newport Football Club's FA Cup match with Bath City in 1935, as I was at that match, age 11, with my late father, Frederick James Fallock. The football ground was at Church Lytton then, and we were standing by the touchline at the lower side of the field. The man playing on the left wing was a Mr. Cook, known as Cookie, and shortly before the end of the match, he shouted to the spectators nearby, "What's the time?" Someone shouted back, "Time for you to score another goal," and shortly afterwards he did, which I think gave Newport a 2-1 victory. My father often talked about it afterwards, and it has always been one of my happy childhood memories, but I never expected to see it mentioned again.
Mm-hmm. And now here's another letter from Stephen French, who lives in Ningwood, and apparently he's not all that thrilled because, as he says, 2 summers ago, Island Roads was scheduled to make major repairs to Lower Station Road, Ningwood, only to renege on the promise at short notice. A written agreement was sent to the parish council stating the works would be done this summer, from the end of July through August, when the schools would be on holiday. Signs were erected and householders were informed there would be some disruption, and we welcomed this at last. However, a week went by with no apparent activity and no communication. Now, via word of mouth and the parish council, we have been informed it will not now be taking place. So this written agreement was worthless. We will now have to wait another year, it seems. Island Roads appear to put the blame on Southern Water for not completing certain works. There seems to be no proper liaison between both organisations, and we, as residents, view that there is a measure of incompetence at management level, unable to communicate with all relevant parties, including the long-standing residents who know certain drainage systems intimately. Residents and the parish council are frustrated at this situation and would welcome a clear statement from both parties with valid reasons for the failure to honour their commitment.
And this is from Victoria Thornton Field from Wroxall, and it's Missing School. I have been trying for some time to find a trace of the home or school to which my father was sent in about 1932. It was in Sandown. He was 3½, and it was run by Our Lady of Lourdes. I have approached a number of historical societies, the Portsmouth Catholic Diocese, searched the County Press Archive, one reference but no useful information in the article, and asked as many people as I can, all to no avail. I would be grateful if readers could help with any information, including where it was located. And there is an email address of victoriatfield@gmail.com.
And Joe Hardy Bishop of Shanklin says, I've just read the report about the Dash and Splash event held at the end of July, in which more than 200 people took part. Unfortunately, you omitted to mention the event was jointly organised by Shanklin and Sandown Rotary Clubs. Rotary is a worldwide organisation which delivers practical help all over the world to needy causes. Its motto is service above self. And as you state, the Dash and Splash raised more than £1,000 for the Sandown and Shanklin Independent Lifeboat. Shanklin Rotary Club organised an annual sale in January, from which many local organisations have benefited. Indeed, only last week, a cheque for £4,000 was presented to Shanklin Theatre to enable it to replace some of its windows.
Island Line fight is not over yet, and this is from Stuart Blackmore of Ventnor. Your story, Joy over Island Line Climb Down, in the County Press of the 12th of August, rightly highlights Kilf's significant achievement in getting the government to back down on its plans to make Island Line self-sustaining. Given the Department for Transport, encouraged by the island's MP, and to the shame of various elected and unelected figures, spent the best part of the last year advocating an approach that would discriminate against the Isle of Wight. Getting them to perform such a U-turn vindicates our approach. But I too would urge caution. Our battle is far from over. The government continues to leave the door open to Island Line being removed from the franchise in the coming years. Making clear a future model could involve someone other than the South Western franchise running the line. The DfT has also refused to confirm Island Line would continue to receive financial support if it was separated from the franchise, which leaves much doubt about its future viability. It continues to amaze me Andrew Turner remains so impotent on this issue. Why is he so intensely relaxed about his constituency's rail service facing an uncertain future? The Labour Party, along with our fellow campaigners, will fight tooth and nail to oppose any disadvantage being applied to our local rail service. It's just a shame our local Conservative MP won't do the same. Let's see what his party's candidates have to say about it in next year's local elections. Shame also the Isle of Wight Council seems prepared to be led by the nose on this issue, as witnessed by its facilitation of the secretive Transport Infrastructure Task Force. Labour's candidates will speak with one voice. We need a united voice on the Isle of Wight Council backing Island Line remaining in the franchise.
And D. Crouch of Topland has got a high hat on how we keep local companies and farmers going. He says, "We have recently been asked to support island firms by buying their produce. Now, here are 3 examples from my local co-op. In the spring, a pile of limp Isle of Wight's cauliflowers were priced at £1.19 each. Collies from Cornwall, which were fresh and chilled, were £1. Mainland eggs are priced at £2.25 for a dozen, and local eggs are £3.30 for a dozen. Dutch fine tomatoes from hundreds of miles and 2 ferry crossings away are £2.48 for a kilo, and island tomatoes from Arreton 30 minutes away are £3.75 a kilo. That's today's prices. Now, give us comparable prices and this local yokel will gladly buy island produce."
And this is from Pauline Allen in Newport. Waverley a great base for our club. As a volunteer trustee of John's Club, a local charity supporting adults with learning disabilities, I would like to extend a huge thank you to Tim and Julie at the Waverley Hotel, Carisbrooke, for their kindness and support given to us over the past 2 years. They have allowed us to use the premises as a venue for our Sunday club. Around 25 members enjoyed great nights out, where they were welcomed with open arms by both Tim and Julie and regular customers. John's Club aimed to give the members a social life and safe environments to meet up with their friends, something we all take for granted. And now we're looking back. So first of all, we're looking back 100 years ago on August the 19th, 1916. Island Scouts were praised by Chief Scout Robert Baden-Powell after a recent inspection at Carisbrooke Castle. He said, "Everything went off without a hitch, and the displays of the different kinds of Scout activities were remarkably well done."
Mhm.
Also, the Isle of Wight Food Council Control Committee complained to the food distribution officer about supplies of margarine, which smelt so bad it was inedible. The officer wrote back saying war shortages made it necessary to use certain raw materials in the margarine, which gave it the particular smell.
And 75 years ago, in August the 23rd, 1941, that's right in the middle of the war, the county press asked readers not to send in any more V-shaped potatoes. People had been sending them in, suggesting even potatoes were joining in the V for Victory campaign. And the paper said it only wanted photographs of potatoes if they were grown in the shape of Hitler, Goering or Mussolini. Yes. And later, apparently, Islanders raised more than £800 for the Lord Mayor of London's appeal, the National Air Raid Distress Fund Flag Day, to help those who'd been bombed.
And 50 years ago, on August the 20th, 1966, rain failed to dampen spirits at Yarmouth Carnival. The greasy pole, in which people walked on a greased pole above the sea, was a popular event with spectators and participants. Brothers John and Christopher Cook took home first and second place. And also, youngsters from the USA, Germany, France and Denmark visited the island for an international youth camp. The camp lasted 2 weeks and was held at the Fairway School in Sandown. There was an array of sporting activities on offer, alongside trips to popular island locations.
And 25 years ago, back in 1991, August the 16th, residents in the West Wight were worried about a 24-hour rave to be hosted at the Golden Hill Fort in Freshwater. Around 700 people were predicted to attend the event, and a neighbour to the site, Lynn Howard, said, "I'm not at all happy about it. This is a quiet area, and it's just the way we like it." And apparently, still at the same time, islanders were relieved to see the back of a plague of hoverflies after a spell of hot weather. Cooler temperatures killed many of the insects. South Wight Chief Health and Housing Officer Chris Binney hoped they'd gone for good, but warned they may return if the weather improved. So they should be all right this year.
And 10 years ago, on August the 18th, 2006, Freshwater sisters Hannah and Louise Cope were surprised to give birth on the same day. Hannah went into labour, and a month earlier than expected, her sister Louise followed her to the labour ward. Hannah said, "We found out we were pregnant on the same day, and now we have had our babies on the same day." And also 10 years ago, a pair of tigers were moved into the new enclosure at the Isle of Wight Zoo with roaring success. While Diamond the tiger was sedated, vet Ian Green took the opportunity to perform a dental check.
And now, Wight Memories. In the latest of her series about Isle of Wight churches, Donna Newham turns the spotlight on a church built on faith, but not on firm foundations. She says, "Travelling between Yarmouth and Newport, you would be unable to miss the church of St Michael the Archangel, situated just by Shalfleet traffic lights. This old church, unnamed until 1964, has stood as a place of worship since before Norman times. Excavations of the churchyard and surrounding area in the early 21st century showed signs of Christian burials dating back to Saxon times, the ancient churchyard stretching out towards the Colburn stream. Excavated remains were carbon dated to as far back as the 7th and 8th centuries and were reinterred in the new churchyard in 2008. And dominating the church is the massive squat tower added after the original Norman church was built. It's thought this huge edifice was added as a place of protection from invasion for the villages of Shalfleet. Both Newtown and Yarmouth were invaded by the French in successive years.
Perhaps the building of the tower, with its 5-foot thick walls, accessible only by a ladder from the outside, kept the people of Shelfleet from the fate suffered by those in the other port towns. The tower itself stood firm against invaders, but was soon subject to interference from its parishioners. The east wall was opened in 1290 to form a great arch, but that caused structural cracks. To stop the collapse of the tower, the arch was closed and buttresses added for strength. During the 1889 general restoration, the arch was reopened, resulting in the collapse of the corner. Subsequent investigations into the tower's construction discovered a lack of adequate foundations for the heavy structure. Underpinning work saved the huge tower for future generations. Much of the Norman building has been destroyed or restored, and the only original features remaining are the north door and the foundations of the north wall of the nave. Over the north door is a tympanum, a semicircular carving featuring a man resting his hands on the heads of 2 lions.
Although the subject matter is of much debate, it's a beautiful piece of Norman carving, which is well worth looking for. And as you enter the church, you're drawn to the 2 sepulchral slabs that lay on the floor of the south aisle. There is a debate over whether it belonged to a pagan Trenchard, who was a 12th century lord of the manor, or a successor. A shield, lance and helmet are carved on it, luckily surviving with little damage after being cast outside during Georgian times. And the south aisle is unusual in being one of the 3 on the island where Purbeck stone was used, the others being St George's in Arreton and the chapel at Carisbrooke Castle. The graceful Purbeck columns were added as part of enlargement of the church during the 13th century, probably to help seat tenants of the manor. And around this time the chancel was built, making the church even bigger. Within it are the fine examples of box pews from the 18th century. Now, many churches took out box pews as the seats could only be used by certain churchgoers or their family, and it often meant regular attendees had to stand while the box pews may have remained empty. And the beautifully carved pulpit dates from the time of Charles I and was lucky to escape the rigours of the Puritan cleansing of many of the churches.
Behind the pulpit is the Kingsley Memorial, which is carved on Welsh slate. Of the many memorials and ancient slabs within the church, the tablets for the Wilkinson family in the chancel stand out. The family were lay rectors in the 18th and 19th century and occupied Parsonage Farm, which stood on what is now the new burial ground. The stained glass windows date from the 19th century onwards. Perhaps the most notable is that of the War Memorial window. Built by Jones and Willis and dedicated in 1920, it features St George for the soldiers and St Nicholas for the sailors killed during the Great War. This church, for so long unnamed, has been large in the life of the parish of Shelfleet, giving protection and comfort physically and spiritually. Perhaps next time you are caught in the queue of traffic on the busy Yarmouth-Newport Road, pull over and step back into the peace and calm that pervades this ancient and characterful building.
There, shows how far back the island can go.
Yeah.
Now here's Charlotte Houghton, who can come in with her usual uplifting comments. She says, "Let's hope for more Yah-boo."
How invigorating to learn of the latest developments in the affairs of Island Line, that ongoing saga which has enthralled the island with its delicious combination of Thomas the Tank Engine muddles and Machiavellian intrigue. That a single-track railway, trundling all of 8.5 miles between Shanklin and Ryde Pier, could cause such a palaver should gladden the heart of every Isle of Wight resident, whether we be train nerds or conspiracy theorists. The story so far centres on a proposal, notably supported by our MP, that Island Line should become a self-sustaining community enterprise. The vehement insistence from opponents of this scheme that its survival depends on its being kept with the government-appointed franchise, and a whole load of ding-donging between the various parties involved.
And KILF, which is the Keep the Island Line in franchise, has been tremendously vigorous in its efforts to achieve its objective and is now cock-a-hoop at obtaining what they claim is a major victory, after submitting a judicial review challenge to the DFT's instruction to franchise bidders that they should work with the Isle of Wight Council to secure a long-term sustainable solution to the future of the Island Line during the course of the next franchise that will enable it to become a self-sustaining business. And the government's legal department has now replaced the phrase a self-sustaining business with a more sustainable business, which KILF sees as a very different kettle of fish.
That old poser of how many angels can dance on the head of a pin is positively broad brush compared to the fallout from this one,
27.
with the nitpickers out in force. First, as Elton John so personally has it, sorry seems to be the hardest word. So the chaps in Whitehall have smoothed over their climb down by saying, the proposed claim for the judicial review may arise out of a degree of misunderstanding, and that the claimants may have interpreted that phrase as self-sustaining business in a way that differs from its intended import.
And KILF has duly hit back with its legal advisor, Warren Dew, furiously squeaking, the phrase only has one meaning, and it was impossible to imagine such a stark and provocative wording appeared originally without a clear intention to eventually remove Island Line from the franchise. And the group has also taken the opportunity to clout the MP around his head with the form of dismissal of KILF as a well self-appointed protest group. And with any luck, there'll be more Yah-boo combat ahead, particularly as one David Pugh is a leading protagonist in KILF, and as is well known, he and Mr. Turner's entourage have considerable form when it comes to argy-bargy. Charlotte will be there, she'll bring it all to us.
Obviously, it would be unthinkable for our parliamentary representative and his advisers to let their approach to Island Line's future be influenced by a historic feud. Perish the thought, and KILF, being utterly fair-minded, would doubtless eschew pedantry and biff-buff point-scoring as a part of its campaign. Another ridiculous notion. It's all tremendous fun. There's also scope for further combat as the new Island Infrastructure Transport Task Force gets going. This force does seem to have a certain cocktail party element to it, and KILF may be demanding whether some of its more gracious members have even travelled on an Island Line train or a public bus, let alone possess any expertise or experience in the field of transport structure.
What will happen to the Island Line remains to be seen, but there seems little hope for its survival outside the franchise, at least in the foreseeable future. For starters, there's no money on the island to chuck it at it, and I can only suggest Mr. Pugh and Mr. Turner climb aboard clockwork trains, brandish station conductors' flags, and charge at each other in a grand jousting tournament, and we charge premium ticket prices to watch the glorious combat. The MP, of course, would have as his second his transport advisor, Nick Finney, while Mr. Pugh would be supported by KILF's legal advisor, once, that is, Mr. Drew had finally finished playing with his semantic set and telling us what self-sustaining business means. And as well as being an excellent spectacle, we might thus find the means to run our own railway outside the franchise. And pigs might fly, which they certainly have to if the trains stop running.
And now we have Sword in Defence of White Van Man. Isle of Wight councillor Chris Whitehouse is not one to hold back when it comes to personal vendettas, and he's had the chairman of Ofsted in his sights ever since the White Ghetto hoo-ha. Writing on the website Conservative Home, apparently it's Britain's leading conservative blog, he thunders, "The mission of our party should be to smash these ivory towers, to be champions for white van man and blue-collar workers." And Hoare is not a lone example of the sneering elite. He is sadly typical of it. Is this Councillor Chris Whitehouse pitching into the sneering elite and mate of the white van man in any way related to the Councillor Chris Whitehouse, who feels so swanky about some recondite accolade he actually puts the letters KSG after his name on his Twitter feed? KSG stands for Knight of St Gregory, incidentally. No, I don't know either. You certainly don't get it via the Queen's Honours List. And surely it can't be the same Councillor Whitehouse who, in possession of this piece of papal flummery and reminiscent of Mr Toad, has more than once risen in the council chamber to boast of his consequent entitlement to carry a sword. This, of course, clearly marks him out from those of the rest of us, the non-elite, who have to make do with an umbrella. No, it can't possibly be the same man, can it?
And now here's some stuff about things of entertainment that will be coming our way. John Moreno says, toilet humour will not be avoided when Joe Pasquale returns to the island with a wacky new comedy show, One Man and His Bog. The squeaky-voiced entertainer who has done the Royal Variety Show performances, won I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, and was the star of the new Spamalot musical, returns to Shanklin Theatre on Monday, August the 29th. A regular visitor to the island, Joe has performed at Shanklin Theatre on 4 of the previous 5 years since 2011. And his new show will feature plenty of new material, impressions and surprises, not to mention his loyal sidekick, Reynard, who crops up on every tour. So, if you know Joe Pasquale and you think you'd be amused by him, pop along. The One Man and His Bog starts at 7:30 p.m. and tickets are available at the Shanklin Theatre box office. How unexpected.
And this is Singers in a Memorial charity show. A memorial concert raising funds for Macmillan Cancer Support is due to be held at St Catherine's Church, Ventnor. Sounds of the Summer is being staged on Sunday, August the 28th, in memory of Jack Redman, who died of prostate cancer on New Year's Eve. Jack is the father of Hannah Brer, musical director of the award-winning Medina Community Choir, who are taking part in the show. The concert will feature classical masterpieces from opera to jazz and songs from shows, as well as light refreshments and a raffle. It begins at 6 p.m. in the church, and there will be a retiring collection.
And a season of concerts performed by the world-renowned Berliner Philharmoniker is to be screened at Ventnor Arts Club. The 2016 to 2017 live cinema season will feature 3 classic concerts, broadcast live by satellite. The first to be broadcast, conducted by the internationally acclaimed Sir Simon Rattle, will feature Pierre Boulez's Eclat and Gustav Mahler's Symphony No. 7. That's next Friday, August the 26th, at 5:30 p.m. Broadcast in high definition with surround sound, each concert will also include interviews and programme insights. And booking for the August concert is now open by calling 857 060.
And at Medina Theatre on Saturday the 20th of August at 7:30 p.m, BBC Radio 2's Leo Green presents Sounds of the 50s. And you can book for this on 823 880, and the tickets cost £23 each. And
there's to be a celebration of the poet's favourite island church, and the poet is Sir John Betjeman, because it's the 110th birthday of the former poet laureate Sir John Betjeman is being celebrated at one of the island churches he loved. A series of events to mark the occasion will be held at St Martin the Martyr's Church, Upper Ventnor, on Sunday, August the 31st. The event begins at 3 p.m. with sung evensong, followed by a tea party at 4 p.m. At 5 p.m, the Conservazione Conversazione, a presentation of poetry and prose, begins. It'll be interspersed with songs for voice and piano with a nautical theme entitled Break O Sea. And Sir John visited St Albans in July 1950 and signed the visitor's book. And the poet said later, "This is the church where I would worship if I came to live in Ventnor." And money raised from donations made at the event will go towards church funds. I think it's very unlikely that Sir John himself will be there.
And now you can enjoy a great day out aboard the paddle steamer Waverley. And there are several trips sailing from Yarmouth Pier. There are several round the island trips, one on September the 8th, September the 13th and 20th, and these cost £35, senior citizens £31. There's some trips around the Needles and the Lighthouse, and with a senior special, buy one get one half price, so that's good. And a couple of trips to the Bournemouth Jurassic Coast in Weymouth in September, and the cost of that is you can visit Bournemouth at £29, Swanage at £33 and Weymouth at £45. Or you can do another trip in Portsmouth's historic dockyard. That's on Wednesdays, September the 14th and 21st. And another trip to the Bournemouth Jurassic Coast in September. So there are several trips which can be booked online at waverleyexcursions.co.uk, or you can call on 0845 130 4647.
And to finish off, we've got some rather pleasant things that are happening at Shanklin Theatre. Unexpectedly, rather good. For instance, on Tuesday, September the 6th, the Russian State Opera presents Madame Butterfly. And then later on the 23rd of September, Friday, Waterloo by the Best of ABBA. And on Saturday the 24th, the London Welsh Male Voice Choir will be doing a medley of things. And on Friday the 30th of September, One Night of Queen by Gary Mullen. Those are some of the highlights of the Shanklin Theatre, but also constantly throughout the weeks that they're doing it, they have their own company who do their singing and dancing show called Best of the West End and Beyond. And I happen to have seen that, and it is really very good.
And there's just a few more articles, and this is End of the Twizy Road. The owner of failed electric vehicle hire company, Hire a Twizy, has officially announced the company's closure. Accountancy company Lewis Ball & Co. issued a statement on behalf of Chris Beach, owner of Hire a Twizy, which operated on the island and in the New Forest. The statement read, "The Hire a Twizy business has ceased trading. Despite best efforts and due to the lack of hire revenue in the 2016 season, twinned with very high running and maintenance costs, the business is clearly not viable in the New Forest or on the Isle of Wight."
And apparently a burglar stole a charity box. And the burglar was Mark Phillips and was told by Isle of Wight magistrates that by breaking into a cafe and stealing a charity box, he'd had insulted society. Phillips, who's 42, of Meadway Lake, was caught by police fleeing the scene after he broke into the Smuggler's Rest in Upper Bonchurch. And he was surprised by the owner of the business, who lived on the premises, after smashing a window to get inside in the early hours of the morning. He was arrested on a footpath between Bonchurch and Shanklin, having been tracked by a police dog. Phillips admitted the burglary when he appeared last Friday, and a total of £269.30 was stolen, including the charity box. All the proceeds were recovered by the police, said Vivian Dulcie, who's prosecuting, and for Phillips, Liz Miller said he's extremely sorry. He's been out of trouble for 13 years. He did stay with the police and handed the items over. He's embarrassed and upset to find himself here. And Phillips was jailed for 12 weeks, suspended for 1 year, with £85 costs and a surcharge. So, that's it.
So, first fundraising event for New Charity. A new charity which supports island families bereaved by suicide is holding its first fundraising event. Remembering Sam, Survivors of Bereavement by Suicide, Isle of Wight, has been set up in memory of Sam Purkis of Ryde, who died in 2012. Sam's family will soon be providing phone and online support for families dealing with tragedy and are raising money to fund their work. The charity's Family Fun Day takes place on Sunday, September the 4th, on the football green at St Helens. The event runs from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. and features belly dancing, a magic show, a range of stalls, food and drink, live entertainment and an inflatable assault course. Everyone is welcome and entry costs £1 for adults and 50p for children.
And it may be that, like me, you will be pleased to hear that further work to improve the main road serving Godhill and Rookley will start next month. And the two sections to be treated are from the Knock to Sandford Cattery and Fairacres to Sandford Farm. Work is scheduled to begin early in September and last 5 nights. Once completed, it will mean a 6.5 kilometre stretch of main road between Highwood Lane and Whately Bank will have been resurfaced. And the work will be completed overnight between 7:30 p.m. and 6 a.m. in order to minimise disruption. There'll be no working over the weekend. So, something to look forward to if you happen to live in either Godsill or Rookley.
And that's all we have for you for today. So it's goodbye from Madeline.
And it's goodbye from Peter. Goodbye.
This is a download from the BBC. For more information and our terms of use, go to www.bbc.co.uk/in-touch. Good evening. Tonight, telling the time by touch, but not as we know it.
The watch doesn't have any face.
OK.
There are 3 buttons down the right-hand side there. Press the top one.
All right. Oh, ooh. Oh, my goodness. I'm getting a little kind of... So it's sort of vibrating, basically. Yeah. In a few moments, we'll be trying out a new kind of watch. And amid all the Olympic excitement, we drop in on preparations for the Paralympics. But first, for those people who aren't able to read a watch face by looking at it, there are 2 conventional alternatives. There's this.
The time is 2:14 p.m.
And then there's this. Now, those of you already in the know will have recognised the tones of a talking watch. And then there's the clicking of the hinge lid on a tactile watch, which many of us who use them call a Braille watch, even though you don't need to know Braille to use one. The trouble is, neither of these methods of telling the time is particularly discreet. You don't, for instance, want your talking watch rabbiting on in the middle of an important business meeting or the promising start of a romantic encounter. Although the clicking watch can be a useful indicator that a particular speech or sermon has gone on far too long. But now something called haptic technology is offering another choice. Our gadget man Ian McRae from the website Disability Now has been testing it out for a few weeks. I asked him first to explain haptic.
It's any kind of technology that conveys information through your sense of touch. So to give you an example, I was once invited to the labs where BT did a lot of its sort of futurology research and was trying to find clever new ways of doing things. And I was asked to explore what looked essentially like a 2-dimensional sort of flat map with my hands. And as I ran my hands over the map, it became evident that by haptic technology, they were able to create the impression of going up a hill. So that, in other words, the contours of the landscape that the map was depicting were presented in a haptic form. It was kind of like a force against my hand that felt like I was going uphill.
So could you sort of summing up as it touching you rather than you touching it?
Yes, I suppose that is probably the distinction, really, Pete. Yeah, but I mean, you could say that Braille, and now particularly electronic Braille, is perhaps the first and original form of haptic technology.
Right. So describe the Renaissance for us.
It's a watch with no face, so it doesn't have any hands on it, which gives you information by vibrating, and it can do a number of different things.
Yeah, and as we discovered right at the beginning of the programme, it actually feels, just to the touch, like a fairly conventional watch, doesn't it?
It does. It doesn't look anything like a conventional watch. It looks very individual. And I think it looks really stylish. It's also really light and extremely comfortable to wear. It's rather large compared to many watches. I would say it's kind of 4 centimetres by 3. So basically it's rectangular. And there are 4 buttons on either side, so buttons 1, 2, 3 and 4 they're called, and you press those in various different combinations in order to get the watch to do different things.
So tell us a bit more about how it works. How does it give you the information about what the time is?
Okay, well the best way to illustrate that is to demonstrate, I think. We press button 1 once and that will give us the hour. So that's 1 short beep and 1 longer beep. There are 3 types of beeps. Short beeps do digits from 1 to 3 and then from 5 to 7 and then number 9 as well. So the short beeps are basically single digits expressed in numbers up to 3. Then the longer beep is a 4. So that would say you had 1 short beep, that would indicate, because it was the first part of the double digit hour, 10. And then a longer beep, which is 4, which is for the 4 in number 14. It's a 24-hour watch. It tells the time in a digital format, and that's something that people perhaps used to Braille and other watches wouldn't be necessarily familiar with.
I was just going to say that. That sounds a lot more complicated to me than the way I just run my finger very quickly over my watch and know immediately that it's, 10 to 9 or whatever it is.
I think, it is a very different experience. Let's give it the minutes and see how that works out then.
Right. Well, I had 2 short bleeps and 1 long one and then another short one.
Yeah.
And my problem is at the moment I don't know what the value of the long one was.
Now, that value is the word to hang on to. The value of the long one is 4.
Right.
So you had 2 short ones. That's 2 times 10, which is 20. And then a short one and a long one, and that's a 4 and another 1, which makes it 25. Yeah. It really is something that you just get used to as you use it.
Because at the moment I still think I might have missed my appointment while I was actually working that out. But you assure me that I wouldn't.
No, I mean, I was using this very happily in terms of telling the time within minutes of setting it up.
Okay. It does more than tell the time though, doesn't it?
It does. Let's just tell you what else it does. It can give you the date. So if I press button 2 once, it's going to give us the day of the week. Now, that's 1 beep on its own, which means it's the first day of the week. And in Austria, that's Monday, apparently. Right. I'm going to press the button twice. That went short for 10, 4, and then a 1 for 15th. And clever listeners will have realised that we've recorded this on Monday the 15th. And the month. And there you had the introduction of the 3rd type of beep, which they call a wave. I think it's more like a warble. And that is a 0. So that's, in digits, that is 0 followed by 2 4s, which means it's 8 for August. In addition to the date, it has a countdown timer. It has a stopwatch, a number of alarms.
Right. Now, you've assured me that it's easy to operate, so I have to take your word for that because I've only recently seen it. What's the concept that makes it more attractive than the other 2, what we're now used to, ways of telling the time if you're blind?
The 2 things I would say about it are, one is it's the most discreet way I've ever come across of telling the time. It's also a very convenient to be able to tell the time, for example, when you're out and about and you don't have to worry about if you open your Braille watch and jog the hands as you're walking along. That's not going to happen with this watch.
Because it hasn't got hands.
And also, if you're used to digital time, digits are a very intuitive way for me of telling the time. I always tend to think of the time in digits rather than in what they call analogue forms.
So is this the only watch of its kind doing exactly what this does?
It's the only one I've ever come across which will give you the time, the date, the countdown timer and the stopwatch in this particular haptic format. I've never seen anything that will deliver all of those things for a blind person.
So are we likely to see haptic kind of crossing over into mainstream.
And well, we are a bit already, actually. Your phone, if you've got a smartphone, or even if you haven't got a smartphone, if you've got a phone that has a vibrate ringer on it, you've got a piece of haptic technology. There are 3 products that I know that are definitely coming up. The Apple Watch, in the new iteration of its operating system, will be giving people the ability to tell the time through haptic means. There's another one from the States called the O6, which is effectively a remote control for a smartphone, and that will also give you the ability to tell the time in haptic format. And then the third thing is a thing called DOT, which is it's been on the stocks now from a startup company in Korea for a couple of years. It's going to be a Braille format 4-cell smartwatch, which will basically have the 4 digits that will enable you to tell the time. Of course, the big advantage of haptic technology in terms of creating Braille, if you can make it work, is that it's way cheaper than those electromagnetic cells that you and I use on our Braille displays, for example, with our note takers and computers.
And just finally, is this likely to replace the others, or are we always going to have kind of 3 alternatives, do you think?
I hear a lot that people are finding what we call Braille watches, what the RNIB insist on calling tactile watches, are increasingly difficult to get. Talking watches, I think, will be here to stay, because I think inevitably for people who lose their sight maybe later in life, the talking watch is not only kind of very good, but they think it's really cool to have something like that.
And because that was a mainstream piece of kit in the first place, wasn't it?
Well, and it tells the time in a format that they know, though it does tell it in a digital format. Interestingly, increasingly this technology is going to be used in all sorts of ways and applications.
Ian McRae of Disability Now. Details of how to get more information about the watch at the end of the programme. And now for a story which just won't lie down. Last week we reported on how the Department for Work and Pensions will allow benefit claimants to record their assessment interviews when applying for things like PIPs, that's personal independence payments, but only if they can produce 2 cassette copies or something like that of the session at the end of the interview on strictly specified equipment, which the industry told us was not only practically obsolete now, but almost impossible to buy. Many of you got in touch with us wondering why, if avoidance of fraud was the reason for such tight rules, the DWP couldn't provide their own recording of the session. Brian Egger emailed to say, "You'd have thought that the department would have fitted CCTV equipment for their own records, could then provide a DVD of the session if required." Martin Redstone also wondered why the department wouldn't have its own recording, so that in the case of a dispute over the facts, the recordings could be compared. After all, Martin added rather cheekily, the bureaucrats could surely be trusted not to tamper with their own recordings, couldn't they? Meanwhile, Lawrence Grant has brought his obviously considerable technical know-how to bear on the problem. He agreed it was now pretty difficult to get hold of equipment which recorded 2 versions simultaneously. The correct name for what we'd need, he told us, is
a twin auto-reverse cassette deck.
But if you could get one, he goes on to say, a feature is that you can achieve parallel recording. And there's a but.
It would also be necessary to obtain a microphone with a 6.5mm jack, although adapters do exist to convert the existing 3.5mm jacks to the 6.5mm socket on the cassette deck.
And I'm afraid that's not all.
In addition, it would be worthwhile to check the instruction manual on the internet if the cassette deck is still available to ensure that parallel recordings are available using a microphone.
And if you managed to achieve all that, I reckon you'd have deserved your personal independence payments. We did put these suggestions to the DWP, the Department for Work and Pensions. They chose to add nothing to their previous statements. Just to remind you what they said last week, they said the reason they don't allow equipment such as laptops and smartphones to record on is because they have the capability of editing and can't provide a copy that can be easily verified during the assessment. And if you need to cool down after all that red-hot technology, we have the very item for you. While our Olympians are busy carrying out their own personal gold rush over in Rio, Paralympians are engaged making their own preparations for their games, which start in 3 weeks' time. We've dropped in on partially sighted swimmer Hannah Russell, who'll be competing in the 50 and 100 metres freestyle and the 100 metres backstroke. She made her Paralympic debut aged 16 at London 2012, walking away with 3 medals. But she'd always regarded Rio as the games where she would be at her peak. In the 4 years in between, she's picked up both European and World Championship wins. Tom Walker joined Hannah poolside at Salford University.
How was that, Hannah?
Good. Yeah, a little tiring, but I'm okay.
Compared with the speed that you normally swim at to win a gold medal or break a world record, what sort of speed were you going then?
Do you know what? I was probably in between, I'd probably say 50 to 60%.
Because I walk quite quickly, and I have to confess, when I did try to keep up with you, it was quite hard.
Yeah, you know, when I'm training, I try and keep up something similar, but the technique that was there and also the leg kick, so something similar to hopefully what I can perform going into Rio.
It's absolutely sweltering here in this swimming pool, so thanks for taking the time to talk to us. Tell me about your visual impairment.
I was born with my condition, extreme myopia. As I was growing, you know, it deteriorated to the fact where now I can only see clearly up to around 1 metre away.
How did you first get into swimming?
It was my parents. When I was at a young age, they sort of influenced me to take up a sport, and swimming was the perfect sport for me. It was really safe. I was able to reach my maximal potential in the pool where it's a safe environment and, you know, I won't bump into anything. So I sort of went into the pool at around the age of 1 or 2, really. As soon as I got into the pool, the love for the water was straight there.
In 2012, you had your sights, even then, set on Rio, but things went rather well for you in London.
Going into London, I was at the age of 16, so I was pretty young. I was competing in 5 events, the 50 metre freestyle, 100 free, 400 freestyle, 100 backstroke and 100 butterfly. So my programme was quite busy and I came away with a silver and 2 bronze.
How did you feel about that success, given it was so unexpected?
I went into London with not as much experience, and coming away with the medals I did and personal bests on top of that, I couldn't ask for any more.
And since then, things have gone rather well for you. I think there have been 2 European Championships and a World Championship, and you've broken world records.
Off the back of London 2012, I was competing at Worlds, Europeans, and to come away with gold and European champion, world champion, and yeah, breaking world records, it was pretty special, and that's my aim going into Rio. I'd love to break world records.
When you're on the podium at London, was it possible for you as a 16-year-old and also a partially sighted person to appreciate the enormity, the magnitude of what you'd done?
Do you know what, when I was there in London, the atmosphere, I really fed off it. With the limited sight I have, I really relied on the atmosphere, and to hear the crowd, I can still feel it now. It's insane, it's amazing.
When you're swimming, you talk there about your sight being so very limited.
Yeah.
Can you actually see the black line?
No, I can't. So, you know, at the bottom of the pool, a lot of swimmers indicate with the T-piece, as it's called. I have to count my strokes, and that's something which I rely on when I'm swimming.
So let's get this clear then. You actually have to count your strokes so you know when to do the tumble.
Yes. So, you know, in training, that's absolutely crucial for me, making sure that I'm counting my strokes. You know, if I get that wrong, that's the turn or finish marked up.
Have you ever miscounted?
Yes, I have. I've smacked into the wall, I've hit my hand, hit my head, all sort of things like that. But a lot of visually impaired swimmers do experience those sort of things, but that's why we train, making sure that we get all those small things correct.
When you're competing, obviously your sight is limited, so presumably you can't see where you are in relation to the other competitors.
No. When I'm swimming, it's me against the clock, really. So I'm in that pool racing for myself and trying to get to the wall as quickly as I can from A to B. As far as my other competitors, I do know they're in the pool, I can feel where they are, but I can't see them and I don't really know the result until I get out. When I touch the wall, it's a guessing game, really. I try and figure it out by the crowd and whether people are shouting around to me, but all in all, it's when the media come to me and say, look, this is where you've come, this is the position.
You're in S12. Could you explain what that category actually means?
Yes, so in the visual impairment there are 3 categories, S11, 12 and 13. So I'm in the middle class, and they're for those swimmers who have sight limited and can see up to around 2 metres away.
So the other swimmers are also visually impaired?
Yes, so S11 are blind, completely blind, or can see fractions of light. S12 can see around 1 to 2 metres, and then S13 is up to 5 metres.
Now we're looking ahead obviously to Rio. When do you travel?
So I travel on the 1st of September. Watching the Olympic Games at the moment is getting me really excited. Going into Rio, I'm setting myself high standards, and I'd like to come away with personal bests, and I'm in search for those world records, and that's something which is one of my goals, and I'd absolutely love to come away breaking those PBs.
Tom Walker reporting, and we'll have regular reports on how our visually impaired athletes are faring from Rio. That's it for today. You can call our action line with any comments or queries for the next 24 hours on 0800 044 044. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk. And this week we'd be particularly interested to hear from people who've had experience of the new rules about identification at airports. We'd also like to hear from keen visually impaired gardeners for a feature we're planning for the near future. Let us know what you're up to, any new equipment there is around, or clever techniques you'd like to pass on. From me, Peter White, producer Cheryl Gabriel and the team, goodbye.